And it's our recording. And Courtney, you can go ahead and share the screen whenever you're ready. But good morning, everyone. This is another episode of the ABC Tour, virtual. I joked yesterday that, of course, ABC is Dr. Avis's beignets and conversation, and for the virtual ones, it's kind of BYOB. Bring your own beignets until we figure out otherwise. But so for this morning, I'm just gonna kind of rock and roll through the presentation, and you can use the raise your hand feature or pop a comment in the chat box if you have a question along the way. And then of course, there'll be time for discussion at the end. This is about a 40 to 45 minute session total. So if you've got any questions or any comments along the way, please pop them into the chat box. And otherwise, good morning, and we're gonna rock and roll. So of course, this is an overview of the 100-day plan, and I'm not going to stay on certain parts of it for a long time because I think most of you have seen at least parts of it and probably read it. But if I'm going too fast on anything, please slow me down. But essentially, I just want to share the tenets of the 100-day plan. And it is based on my core values, which are equity, excellence, and joy. And throughout this presentation, I'll lift up a few aspects of that. It's also based on our board's priorities, and that's definitely a great thing because I certainly want to infuse the work of the board into my entry. So civically engaged scholars, strengthening our operational infrastructure, scholar partnerships, and of course, collaborative communities are the board priorities, and you'll see these infused throughout the plan. One of the other aspects is looking at key questions. And so when I've done these in person and especially throughout the community, I'll pick a couple of the questions to kind of hone in on. For the purpose of today, we'll be honing in on the what do we need to stop, start, or continue piece. That'll be one of the main parts that we'll look at. But I will tell you that throughout the presentations I've done thus far, the enrollment system is always top of mind, number one for people in terms of questions and challenges and that sort of thing. So we know that that's going to be an area we'll look at closely as we move forward. Another area that I really like to lift up is making sure that we incorporate our scholars' voice. We often talk about the student voice, but sometimes it's easy for us to keep moving things along without explicitly engaging our scholars, and certainly want to prioritize doing that. So looking forward to having some advisories and other opportunities for scholars and families to be heard as we look to make our district more family friendly and engage the community. That last question on this slide, how can we optimize our district while creating community schools? That's another pain point that we certainly talk a great deal about with community members. And by optimize, we mean right size. School leaders, you should have gotten an email from Raphael about our notice of intent as we look at our policies and so forth around this particular area. So a lot of more conversations to be had about that. The goals, the first and foremost, conduct the school visits. One of my biggest goals is to make sure I get to every single school. And one of the things I said last week when I met with school leaders in person is that I don't believe you build relationships in meetings. And so I do look forward to meeting with our school leaders at your schools and in your element where we can do walkthroughs and talk about what's going well and what some of your challenges are. So that's like number one, is getting into schools. And so appreciate the comms team for arranging that. We're doing, go back to Courtney, I wasn't quite done yet. Also want to make sure developing trusting, productive, and collaborative relationships with all stakeholders. And then of course, engaging families in conversation. And a big part of that right now is through the ABC tour, and then followed by solution circles. So as we lift up areas that come up consistently, the goal will be to form solution circles for those areas where we really look at problem solving. Okay, I'm ready. Establish NOLA CARES. CARES is our community access to resources and equity, all about mental health and wellness, and that's a priority. I've heard so much from community members about the trauma and the needs within our community, and certainly within our schools. Conduct deep data dive to determine achievement and opportunity gaps that disproportionately impact children of color. And as we do so, really looking at root causes, how did we get here? What are some things that perhaps we can do differently as we identify opportunity as well as achievement gaps within the results that we're getting from our scholars. And then work collaboratively with internal and external stakeholders as we address attendance and truancy. Chronic absenteeism is a national problem, and coming back to school through this pandemic has proven to be challenging.
But I'm happy, like I told you, I feel like I'm being pulled back there, like with these projects.
No, everything. It's like the momentum.
Like I'm being pulled back there. So I'm glad that I did at least like start having these conversations so that.
Yeah, I'm grateful because no, I literally thought, so whenever someone's like, can you talk to us about urgent? I'm just like, okay, they're quitting, just prepare yourself for the moment they have to quit. Like, be good. But so just like that, I'm only telling you that because that's how.
Okay, thank you. What was I saying? Oh yeah, we're looking at making sure that we meaningfully address attendance and truancy. And you may have seen the press conference that we participated in with the city. And that was before school started, just to go ahead and start highlighting the need for our scholars to attend today, to achieve tomorrow. That's our theme, and it's all about making sure that we're spreading that message of school attendance throughout the year, not just the month of September, when it's of course the National School Attendance Month, but throughout the year, emphasizing that with hashtag count me in, hashtag I'm in. Additional goals. And can everybody please mute? If you're not muted now, can you please mute? Because I do hear some background noise, and moving forward, we'll make sure we do this in a different format so that the muting won't be necessary, but thank you. Develop a process for charter extension and renewal to accommodate for the impact of COVID-19. And that's work that took place actually spring and summer. Develop an accountability formula specific to NOLA PS, where we emphasize academic growth, learning environment, social and emotional learning, culture, and climate. And the idea behind this is looking at our schools as more than a test score, looking at our scholars as more than a test score, and just looking at other aspects of learning environment and school experience through the eyes of our families as well as our scholars. And our accountability team is working with a number of stakeholders, including the school leaders that volunteered to participate as we look at the CSAF. Develop a policy for facilities dispensation that provides for community benefit and use. That's about partnerships primarily. Develop and implement a plan to support the millage renewal. And our team is actively fact-finding and gathering information so that we can begin that campaign this fall. And then of course, our annual budget has to be presented in a timely manner. And we want to be sure that we're transparent as we do that. All right, so those are the goals. And of course, like I said before, this whole plan is really kind of based on my core values, starting with equity, which for me is all about intentionally eliminating gaps and barriers and making sure we provide access for high quality education to all of our scholars. And a couple of ways that we'll do that through this 100 days is, of course, the ABC tours in every part of our community. And then another big piece will be looking at our strategic plan. Sam Pichon is our Executive Director for Equity and Strategic Planning, and she's already started working with our transition team to reimagine our strategic plan and look at things through an equity lens. Want to make sure we're interrogating multiple data points as we consider achievement and opportunity gaps, and again, especially those that disproportionately impact our children of color. And then also looking at our single site schools. How can we better support our single site schools, as well as those schools led by people of color. And there's, research behind that shows some of the challenges that are faced compared to our larger networked schools. Next is excellence, high expectations, and accountability. And some of the ways that we'll ensure excellence through the plan are, next slide, please. Making sure again that we're looking at the CSAF to include learning environment, culture, and climate, establishing and extending professional learning and growth opportunities. So looking forward to giving opportunities for virtual book talks, Twitter chats, looking at a PLC formula, and how we can engage professionally and make sure we're all truly lifelong learners. Convene school leaders, teachers, student, and family advisories, so we get that two-way communication. And then I mentioned before, establishing that transition team as we reimagine the strategic plan. And then finally, joy, believing in our work and enthusiastically celebrating our success. One thing I lift up in every meeting is that this is not all gloom and doom by a long shot. We have so much to be proud of and so many amazing things happening throughout our community and throughout our school district. And I've seen it firsthand as I've visited schools. But we do want to make sure that we have recognitions and celebrations in place, that we're looking at culture and climate data so that we can improve working conditions for our team members, as well as learning experiences for our scholars. And then I mentioned before that partnership with NORD, as well as other entities like the Public Library, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs, so that our scholars have sports, recreation, and learning opportunities outside of school. And then I mentioned NOLA Care. So really excited to share information about the Care Fair later this fall. Already we've begun making sure that we pull together the various service providers for all things mental health and wellness. And the goal is to be able to create like a one-stop shop where family members can look at and understand the various opportunities to engage with service providers, whether it's mental health, trauma-informed practices, looking at ways to improve self-care, even physical health and wellness. And of course, we want your feedback. And we've got the QR code that's posted everywhere. And if you want to log on to the website, if you click on the website there, then of course there's a space where you can provide feedback. We've got a Padlet going that's, we've gotten some pretty good feedback already and from throughout the community, and some great questions that are also being asked, some of it for clarity for what we're doing, and others just pushing out something new that they want more information about. So that's how we get feedback. And go ahead to the next slide, Courtney. Oh, that was the last slide. Yay. So what I want to do now, and you can go ahead and stop sharing the screen, Courtney. Thank you so much. What I want to do now then is just see, let me see who's in the room. Yay. Good. Welcome, 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 everybody. It's good to see your faces and your names. I appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. And so that's really the meat and potatoes of it in terms of what the 100-day plan consists of. And again, it's just based on the first 3 months of my entry. So clearly a lot more will be done, and it's not considered to be all exhaustive by any means, because there's always room to look at things differently and to add or to make adjustments. So with that said, I'm gonna pause right here and see if we have any specific questions or thoughts or anything. Hi, Caroline. Hi, everybody else too. I just didn't realize Caroline.
Good morning. Usually when you're with a group of school leaders, they are very quick to express themselves, but since no one's jumping in, I'll ask.
Okay.
I mean, you now have what, a couple months under your belt? Maybe not even a couple months yet.
Not even a couple of months yet.
A month, maybe.
Yeah, a little over a month.
Tell us about just, I appreciate the the 100-day plan, but I'm just more curious as you're out in the community, like, how are you feeling about the role? It's such a different role than probably any other superintendent in the country has, just being all charters. Talk a little bit about how you are how you're navigating such a different way of being a superintendent. And maybe I'm not being very eloquent in that, Dr. Williams, but I hope you get my point.
Yeah, and it is definitely very different, but in a lot of ways it's not, because the community has their concerns because they want a quality education for their babies. And so I hear the same concerns here that I would hear in most any other district in terms of wanting the best for their babies. And that's the bottom line. And that's really the biggest topic when we think about the enrollment system. What I'm hearing from people when they have questions or complaints about it is because they want to make sure they can get a high quality school for their child. And that's really the one piece that I keep hearing over and over and over again. And I'm still trying to unpack some of the parts of it that's about the enrollment system and the parts that are about not getting the school that they maybe wanted for their child, right? Then the other question that comes up is why can't we have quality schools in every community, and why can't we have community schools?
Which is certainly not an unusual ask for anywhere in the country, right? I mean, everybody asks that, like, why can't all schools be succeeding? Maybe my question would be better framed in when in this particular setting, you are not responsible for the day-to-day operations of schools.
Yep.
Maybe that would be a better way to frame it. So how is that working for you when you come from a background of like being in control of those sorts of things versus now having to work with others that are in control of their individual schools or networks?
Yeah, well, absolutely. The role in terms of responsibility is definitely different. As a superintendent, though, I've always believed in giving principals and school leaders some autonomy to make their own decisions. It's their school. I've never been a micromanager, so to have to step back to the extent of being an authorizer rather than the hands-on day-to-day operations, it's a challenge at times because I am hands-on, and I'm a practitioner, but I certainly understand the role. And honestly, leadership for me, leadership is leadership in terms of just being able to connect with people and really uncover the challenges in terms of what makes people's jobs harder than what they need to be. And I feel like as a leader, that's always one of the roles, is to figure out how do we make progress, first of all, because at the end of the day, we've got to improve outcomes, right? But how do we do that while also making sure we're pulling people along and not making life more challenging for the leaders in their individual roles? And that's always a challenge, because one of the things I used to say when I was a middle school principal is I don't have a magic wand. When I was a high school principal, I said it too. And before I left the high school where I was principal, my art teacher gave me a magic wand.
Your Harry Potter wand, yes.
Right, but there's no magic formula to this. I mean, I've been at this for almost 25 years, so there are very few things that can trip me up. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that because I've dealt with a lot of stuff, and I've consulted with school districts from across the nation on various things. So definitely looking forward to digging in and unpacking some of the uniqueness about our district, and loving that part, actually, because I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I kind of like the complications.
Yes, I see you early in the morning running your, what is it, 12 miles or whatever you do. That's insane.
Not quite 12 yet.
You've got a lot of good stuff in your 100-day plan. My last is more a comment, not a question. I love the solution circles idea.
Yeah.
I really, from an LAPCS standpoint, we like to problem solve, not just gripe about something, but actually like figure out on behalf scholars and educators how to do it
Mhm.
better. So I love that part, and look forward
Mhm.
to hopefully sometimes being part of your circle on
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. And the way I really hope that will fold out is that, if you're interested in a particular area or particular challenge, join that solution circle and let's brainstorm. Let's get experts in if we need some different data points, and do any type of research that's necessary in terms of finding out what some of the effective practices already are. As unique as we are, a lot of our challenges aren't because of our charter system. I mean, we're in an urban city. And you would be hard pressed to find another urban city that doesn't have very similar challenges as far as what we have. And so even they are, as they grapple with it, are coming up with some best practices and some things that actually work. So really look forward to learning from other communities that are engaging in similar work. And that will be part of what happens during solution circles also. And there may be homework. Let me just go on and warn you, if you join a solution circle, there may be homework because I'm a researcher, and I believe we have to have data points to be able to, make sure that we're looking at things holistically enough. But thank you for those questions and comments, Caroline. Other questions or thoughts?
Hi, y'all. Good morning. This is
Good
Caitlin
morning.
from Rooted School. Hi, Dr. Williams. Thank you so much
Hey.
for creating time for this session. I'm really just going to lead with gratitude. I'm grateful for clarity. I'm grateful for the clarity of the direction with which we're headed. And I'm grateful to hear that from you directly. So I'm just thankful. I think maybe if I were to inquire about a question is like, I'm excited about your plan. What's the one thing you need from school leaders to make sure we support you in also enacting that plan? Like, I'm curious also what's needed from us. I know you've named some of those things throughout the presentation, but if there's this one thing you want us to have top of our mind, what might that be?
I think the one thing that I need from school leaders as we really start unpacking is just be prepared for some tough conversations. And y'all, when I tell you, we have some amazing things happening in our schools, but we're not perfect. And sometimes I get a little dismayed because I feel like our narrative that we push out is like we have to be perfect because we're so unique. We don't. And understanding that a lot of our challenges is not because of charter schools. A lot of it is because we're an urban school district, and I just think we need to own where we are and start there, and we don't have to sugarcoat it. We don't have to try to frame it in such a way where it looks like something is more successful, for lack of a better word, than what it is. It's okay. Let's just own where we are and then get better. And I always say you don't have to be sick to get better, right? And so the improvements that need to be made, it's not because we're broken. It's because our babies deserve us to give them the very best, right? Excellence. And so that would be my biggest ask, is just let's dig deep and let's ask the tough questions and own some of the challenges that we know we need to impact and do things differently. Because until we do that, I just don't see the progress being made that our scholars and families deserve. And like I said, that's one of the things that has really kind of struck me is, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about telling our story and pushing out all those amazing positive stories on social media. But then when it comes down to people needing things, wanting things, and having challenges, let's meet people where they are. And even if we don't always see it the way they see it, let's own the fact that that's their perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
And just let's do it together. We're all in this together, and there's so much more that we can do when we work together.
Agreed. I want to appreciate your push on the continuous cycle of improvement. I completely agree with you. I think there's a lot there, and I'm grateful for the naming of the difficult conversations. And I think I'll just take an opportunity to offer my commitment to share the truth, and to have those chats with you, and for us to navigate that together. And yeah, again, just grateful. And I think it's helpful for me to hear your perspective on the narrative or on like what's being pushed out, but then when we're really trying to problem solve what we need to bring to the table. So just grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Other thoughts or questions? while you're thinking, let me tell you a little bit about where we're headed also. So I mentioned the transition team. And so the transition team did have their first meeting about a week ago. And the purpose of the transition team is just to look at our current strategic plan. And you all probably know that the strategic plan was created a little over a year ago. But when Dr. Lewis decided to retire, the board kind of put a pause on it and just said, okay, this is a roadmap for right now. And then when the new superintendent comes in, we can pick it back up from there. So that's basically what we're doing. We're looking at the areas that were already identified. And one piece that the team did not get to before because of the pause was looking at key performance indicators, looking at the outcomes, the expected outcomes, looking at some deep strategies to ensure that there is a plan for meeting the specific goals that will be determined. And so the transition team is doing that now. And Sam Pichon is our internal lead for that. And she's doing a great job of working with our transition team as we just unpack what we already have with our strategic plan and just reimagine it. And in doing so, prepare for ultimately launching the reimagined strategic plan sometime in the spring, and most likely to be implemented maybe as early as late spring, but certainly for next school year. So those are some kind of next steps that we're working on. And then you also know that we're revisiting our CSAF to add some a little bit more breadth and depth to the academic piece. And I'll tell you why, the rationale behind that. First of all, hearing from school leaders, because one of the things that I've heard is that, for schools that have extremely high poverty, and especially, if you're not selective entry, you're going to have some different challenges, right? And there's a body of research around poverty and the impact that poverty has on learning. Doesn't mean our babies can't learn. It just means we do have to take that in consideration and do things differently. But I'm a big believer in school experience and learning environment mattering, right? If our babies are in trauma, they're not going to be the best learners. If they don't feel safe at school, they're not going to be the best learners. When we engage them with art and hands-on learning, they're better learners, right? So there's a lot more that goes into what I consider a quality school aside from one test score one day, right? And so the idea is if you walk into a school and let's say you see the debate team practicing, right? And they're just phenomenal. It's like, oh my God, I want to record them. Or you go to another room and there's an amazing band or choir, or you go to a science lab and, they're communicating with NASA, all of these things. And you walk out of that school and you realize, wow, that was a D school? We're not telling the whole story when we leave it at just that as a letter grade. So the goal would be just to be able to have a more comprehensive story that we're telling in terms of what we have for academic quality. So looking forward to exploring what that could look like. For our schools that are already A and B school, the same thing. They're doing some great things and want to make sure that part is included as well as the scores that their scholars are getting. So more information to come on that. I think Raphael is scheduling first meeting starting next week, I believe, if not this week. So you'll hear more about that. And the other piece is the attendance campaign, making sure that we continue to promote school attendance. And it's not just something that we're doing, again, for the month of September. September is Attendance Awareness Month, but we want to do it even beyond that. So looking forward to that. And then the last thing I will say is if you're interested in working with us on our efforts to provide resources for wellness and mental health, please let us know, because the NOLA Cares piece is going to be pretty amazing. Dr. Jordan is leading those efforts, and we would love to hear your input and any suggestions on any partnerships that exist. I was in Jefferson Parish.
I'm sorry. The mental health piece, I think, is huge on partnerships. Yeah. Maybe Kelly's already doing it. Have y'all connected with like Children's Hospital and like Thrive Kids Thrive, I think it's called, or something. They're pretty
Yeah.
good.
I
Mhm.
can jump in there real quick. Hi Caroline and hi
Hi,
Dr.
good
Coombs and
morning.
everybody. So we've worked with Children's in the past, and ironically, I talked to Sarah yesterday because we've been working with Councilman Giarrusso ahead of this city council presentation that a bunch of different mental health providers in the city are giving on September 15th. But she is connecting me directly with Kim over at Children's so that we can have another conversation. We've worked well with them in the past, and want to continue to do that and make sure that we're not duplicating any of the efforts, particularly around the trauma-informed care. And then I know they're going to be setting up something with Dr. Williams as well. So the
Good.
short answer is yes.
Okay, good. I love the work y'all are doing on the Medicaid piece too. I think that's really strong. So thank y'all for leaning in on that. And I look forward to hearing more about that.
Absolutely. A lot of, as Dr. Williams said, a lot of exciting things to come. This is the stuff that gives us the energy for sure. So we appreciate all the connections and partnership and definitely the fundraising too that's going to come as a part of some of the work. So
Yes, because is Stuart on here? And maybe he's not listening, because when we ask him for money, y'all, sometimes he tells us no.
Yeah, I hate Stuart for that reason. Stuart, give us money.
Heard my name.
No, but we definitely, the funding is important. So we'll, the good thing about this work is that we do have different, multiple funding sources, because it does meet the requirements for using federal funds and that sort of thing. But we just have to be still creative in terms of making sure we have enough funding to do what needs to be done. But a lot of it is really about partnerships. I was in Jefferson Parish earlier this week, and I meet quarterly with the superintendents of the other large school districts. And last year during their meetings, the focus was on literacy. And this year our focus is on mental health and wellness. And so at the visit at Jefferson Parish, we saw community circles being done. We saw a lot of therapeutic pieces that were in place, embedded in their schools, and then also some pull-out pieces around a wellness advisory team. It was a teen wellness advisory team, and y'all, they were so incredible. This one young lady spoke, we were talking about anxiety. They pick a different topic when they meet. This time it was about anxiety. And the questions were, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And what are some things that you can do about it? And one young lady spoke, and she was so impressive. And she just talked about listening to them, that too many times adults don't listen to them. They ask us, but then when we tell them, they don't listen and they don't take us seriously. And then after she made her comments, I found out that she actually had an anxiety disorder, and for her to even speak up at all was so huge. But for her to have that safe space to do it and to inform steps that the district would take in terms of prioritizing needs of scholars, I just thought it was amazing. So I stole some ideas from Jefferson Parish that I definitely plan on seeing how they fit with some of our needs. So looking forward to doing that. So with that said, I am going to wrap up. And just know that that there are plenty of opportunities for us to continue to engage. Looking forward to continuing with my school visits. And if I haven't been to your school yet, I'm coming. I'm going to put my cell number in the chat. And if you have any needs before I actually come see you, then by all means reach out. You can always email me too. If it's about needing to meet, emailing is probably the best thing, because Lance gets my emails and he takes good care of me, making sure I don't miss anything. But that's my cell number that I just put in the chat. So shoot me a text. That's what I mentioned last week when I met with school leaders. I'm coming to see you, but if you've got a need before I get there, please let me know. Or if you've got something special, something celebratory that you want me to come and to participate in, or to see, or to observe, or anything like that, please reach out. Looking forward to seeing you at the scheduled visit times, but definitely we can make another arrangement to do it sooner, or to do something differently if that's what you need. So just let me know. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us and have an amazing day. Thank you.